Good morning and welcome to this special Hangout program live on Google+. Today we are discussing the burden of sovereign debt, this sword of Damocles, which is preventing some of Europe's economies from really taking off and locks us into a spiral of sky-high interest payments on the debt, financial speculation and budget cutbacks. Can we ever pay off our foreign debt? Sovereign debt? Should we have to? These are the main questions of today's programs. Let me introduce, first of all, my guest here in an empty European Parliament with MEPs back to their constituencies, to the final days of the electoral campaigns. So, to my right, I have Ansgar Belke. Hello.
Hello.
You are Professor of Microeconomics at the University of Duisburg-Essen. And on my left, I have Eric De Keuleneer. You are a professor of the Solvay Business School in Brussels. Hello. Hello. And then we travel further afield. We have from Athens, Professor Ioannis Samorgelis, who teaches international finance at the Aegean University. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. And from Paris, we have Frédéric Lemaire from the NGO Attack. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Frédéric. So, just a few remarks for everybody. Please, I ask everybody to be clear and concise, and to our guests connected by webcam to feel free to intervene if you feel it to make really a real discussion. So, Eric De Keuleneer, I will start with you. Do you honestly think that Greece, Ireland, Portugal, Italy, Belgium, France will be able to significantly reduce their sovereign debt?
I would make a difference with countries like Greece, Portugal, and Ireland. Those are the three countries that are coming out of the help programs. I think those three countries really do have a problem of excessive, very high debt, probably excessive debt, and that something has been done already for Greece, and something more will probably have to be done. Belgium, Italy, France are probably different problems. They probably can manage their debt burden as it is today, especially if interest rates remain low, but they have to rather quickly get out of their deficits and get positive budget surplus.
Because then I hand this around the table, and then I go to Athens. Ansgar Belke, the same question for you, because this question, which is a bit provocative, we should never say to the markets, I will not pay back my debt. Of course, we don't have to say that, but honestly, with a debt rate of 130 and 40%, is it possible to think to really cope with this amount of debt today?
Yeah, I would just like to make the same differentiation as my colleague does. If you look for Greece, for instance, the main message is not that they have received a primary surplus, but the main message is that exports are not growing yet. So this is an important message because this signals the markets the ability to pay back foreign debt, and this may pose a danger. But the second thing is that we really should look forward to official sector involvement, what we call the involvement of governments, the taxpayers, which are still in the game for Greece, because nearly all of the debt is in the hands of official institutions right now. And how can Greece get away with all its debt without such kind of other haircut? And another thing is, if you look at Portugal, for instance, they have an improved current account balance, more experts, but you have to also take into account that markets have broken down at home, and they could not serve the markets at export because home markets have broken down. So I'm a little bit skeptical right now.
Ioannis Samorgelis, what is your opinion the day after the European elections? Will the Greek authorities ask for a second and big debt restructuring?
Yes, for sure, because this is part of the agreement It's a responsibility, let's say, that the Troika has been engaged into when the memorandum was signed, that if the Greek government proceeds some good results in the budget sector and performs surpluses in primary surpluses, then the Troika has to discuss the restructuring of the debt. So I expect that this is an issue that will come in the agenda after the elections, yes.
Yes, but then there is perhaps a larger question I launch now, that if we, okay, we can cut the Greek debt, but then if growth will not increase as we ask in all these countries, the problem will come back again. So how to cope with these national debt?
Could I put some data on the table? First of all, there is a primary surplus, which is significant and is increasing. The current account is from negative, it's around now, it's almost zero, and in some quarters it appears positive, so it is we have also good results there. The growth rate is expected to increase up to 3% from 2015 and onwards. So I believe that if we proceed in a debt restructuring, then the burden will be, let's say, and become a size that can be, you know, won't be a burden anymore. It will be something that you can handle, you can work with.
Okay, Frédéric Lemaire, so you join us as well. This system where we need to go to the market with the risk of speculation and this vicious circle of interest, do you think it's sustainable?
Yeah, I think that there is a larger question. When you look at the public debt, there is the issue of trying to find out where the public debt comes from, and in ATTAC we believe that the public debt is the result of the public debt crisis is the result of the financial crisis, and the issue here is that the responsible of the financial crisis are not paying the cost of the crisis. We believe that austerity measures are making the peoples pay the bill of the financial crisis, and there is a real issue in the fact that the governments are not willing to confront the financial sector. We have a very interesting report, for example, on the rescue package that was proposed to Greece, and it shows that 77% of the money that was lended to Greece by the European Stability Mechanism has gone in the financial sector. So that is a real issue here, that we are lending money to the financial sector and not to the people.
We enlarge a discussion. I come back here. Was there another solution? This is always the question. Was there an alternative?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe now the banking union comes into our discussion, because this is one possibility to get out of the mess, because both fates are intertwined. Fates of banks, fates of governments, as the preceding speaker said. And now the hope was, before the European elections, to get up with a sound banking union. But what I see there is still that only 8% of debt arising through a banking crisis is covered by the investors, by the shareholders still. So I don't see much progress in it, and would like to follow my preceding speaker in that respect.
From ATTAC, yes.
Yes. So what I would like to propose here, not necessarily to allow for a higher debt burden, but have a ceiling on this still, and also have take into account what the ECB is doing right now. Low interest rates mean, of course, larger leeway for incurring additional debt, and this is one of the dangers we should discuss as well. So
yeah, so you mentioned the ECB. Perhaps we could have a look together right now to the small extracts of the interview Jean-Claude Trichet. I met yesterday. He couldn't be here with us today. The former president of the European Central Bank. In short, Trichet says that we don't need to change the role of the ECB. This was my next question I will ask you. As the central banks already does a lot. Let's hear what Trichet says.
La Banque Centrale Européenne,
European Central Bank has focused on the financing of banks.
Le financement des banques par l'octroi de liquidité.
Through the provision of unlimited liquidity at a fixed rate.
Illimité veut dire naturellement qu'il présente des garanties.
This means that any bank can have as much liquidity as it wants.
La liquidité qu'elle désire.
À partir du moment où vous êtes...
That was the other one. Eric De Keuleneer, I can launch you again because this brings us to another discussion which is very interesting. Trichet was talking, I mean, I guess about after 2011 where the ECB really started an active role helping banks.
Right.
But it's true that at the beginning, I mean, the bill was asked to the European citizens, and now Greek citizens and the Irish citizens are paying the bill, which Attack said went basically back to European banks. So do you agree with Trichet? He basically said we don't have to change the ECB role, and I make now a round with that. Johannes in Athens.
No, I would not agree with Jean-Claude Trichet. I also did not agree at all with the position that the ECB took in 2010, 2011 about Greece. I think then the restructuring of the Greek debt should have happened much earlier. Of course, it would have been painful for the big banks, the large banks who had lent a lot of money to Greece, who had lent far too much money to Greece. But the ECB really did give the impression of wanting to protect the banks.
Yesterday, I have to say that he confirmed that it was the good decision.
Oh, yes.
Otherwise, the catastrophe
they seem to
would
be
have been there.
happy about it. The only ones who profited from that were the shareholders of banks, but first of all, the top management of banks who continued to cash their bonuses. But thus, Greece has carried a far too high debt much too long, and the only help Greece has received during 2 years was more loans with whom they could repay the banks. Does that really, there would have been another possibility?
Yes.
It was that the commercial banks would have paid much earlier.
Yes.
And that would have been less painful for Greece. Reforms were needed, but it would have been much less painful. In Ireland also, the ECB insisted that the Irish banks would repay all of their debt and that the government would stand for that.
Yes.
Which was also not necessary.
I think it's interesting to go back. I'm sure our professor from Athens shared the same opinion with you concerning the restructuring of the Greek debt in the first step. I mean, I know because we already met in Athens, but I wanted to speak about the role of the ECB today and if it's playing the right role, or if we could imagine a reform of this European Central Bank. So perhaps, Mr. Samougalis, what do you want to add about the ECB, and then I come back to
Yes, I think that there's a huge mistake here. The mistake is that ECB finances the banking system, and the banking system is not financing the real economy. Actually, what happens is that the ECB finances the accounts of the banks, staying there, let's say, adequacy ratios or some ratios that are needed for their well-being. Now, the problem of that is that, for instance, a medium entrepreneur in Greece, a medium-sized entrepreneur, if he tries to borrow about 1 million, he faces a real interest rate of 9%, while if a medium entrepreneur tries to borrow in Germany, it faces a real interest rate of 1%. As you can realize, this difference affects the competitiveness of the economy. So if you want to restore the competitiveness of Greece, given this difference, then the whole burden lies on wage cuts. And this cutting of wages creates social instability and political instability. I don't think that this kind of policy and this kind of strategy is the correct one. I believe that the ECB should take measures in order to finance the real sectors of the economy, and through the recovery of the real sectors to proceed to the convergence of the European Union and the overcoming of the crisis. I think this is the alternative that the ECB should follow, with special measures for the liquidity of each country, given the circumstances that exist there in the specific countries, not in the European Union level. The differences are huge among us. So the ECB, though, is common for all of us.
Ansgar Belke, what do you think about the ECB action today and what Professor Belke just said?
Yeah, let me just add that the ECB did a lot in the past years to support program countries like Greece. And then I would like to develop the idea of how the ECB should be shaped today. They did a lot of liquidity assistance to the southern countries. They did a lot in terms of sovereign bond buying, and this spills over to today. This is the burden for the ECB. It imposes also some risks on the balance sheets of the ECB, but maybe you can argue that this is the right thing to do in order to enable Greece to get back to the markets via announcements of bond purchases, for instance. But let us look at Trichet's statement right now. He said that the full-term allotment, as he called it, the bazookas, really helped a lot. But if I look where the money has been spent by the banks, they have been spent to the balance sheets backed by the ECB, by German banks, and have been spent for additional bond buying by the southern countries. So what you really should look into right now is that the politics has to go forward with a solution of making banking union more strong and get the ECB out of the mess, because it's a politically independent body. It's not responsible for taking care of the country's affairs. And allow me a last remark on the difference of the interest rate for small and medium-sized enterprises in Austria versus North Italy, the famous Draghi example. You also have to look at different political governance structures. You have the Italian political governance system and the Austrian ones that have different business cycles as well. And it's not only the euro area break-up risk which matters.
It's up to ECB to make all that, or it's just a political decision? So it's what we miss is really this European government of the Eurozone.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. The ECB is overburdened. It did a very good job at the beginning, but now it has to be solved, has to be consecuted by politics in making tough decisions.
Eric De Keuleneer, do you have some alternative proposal for the future that could be feasible?
Yes, I do believe indeed that we need, and it is a responsibility for all governments and for the EU institutions to have a financing system which relies much less on banks. The great weakness of Europe is that its financing depends far too much on banks, and we have banks that are far too big and that are far too dangerous for the economy. So
it's typical for the European system. Perhaps you could remind people that in Europe, banks, especially in Europe, are really big, more than in the United States or somewhere else. Could you just remind the volume? I mean, is enormous.
Yes, it's of course, figures are sometimes difficult, but the balance sheet of banks in Europe is between 2 and 4 times the gross national product of European countries, which is 3 to 4 times more than in the United States. It's sometimes difficult to compare.
So there, some limits could be put by.
But a limit should be put. But of course, banks are also responsible for 90 to 95% of the financing of the economy. And there in the United States, financial markets are much more active. And the long-term financing is provided much more directly and indirectly through financial markets. And there we need structural reforms where ultimately the ECB could help if there was, for instance, a securitization market in Europe that was more profound, more deep. Then if the ECB wants to provide liquidity, they could provide liquidity by directly investing in the securitization market. Yes. And that would really help the real economy then.
I have another extract of another meeting I had with in fact somebody in Belgium is trying to launch a new concept of bank, a cooperative bank, as he call it. Every citizen can contribute to finance this bank without going to the financial markets. Let's hear what Bernard Bayot told us.
À partir du moment où vous êtes dans un club, comme c'est le cas de la zone euro,
From the very moment you join a club, solidarity mechanisms must be established.
Eh bien, il y a des mécanismes de solidarité qui doivent pouvoir être mis en place.
This is the case in the Eurozone and the club of member states which have faced significantly bigger problems than other people. In the case of sovereign debt, for example, this would mean debt alleviation. It's not just a question of solidarity, but also of efficiency. If a member of a club has difficulties, this can have an impact on the whole club.
So Bernard Bayot in this excerpt mentioned the solidarity element, which in a club in the Eurozone should be very important. Now we know that we have new rules who just came into force, the fiscal compact, which impose our member states to reduce, for instance, our sovereign debt consistently every year. And we know that outside, in the United States, in Japan, they don't have really the same politics. So why do we have to reduce our sovereign debt?
Yeah, one of the reasons is that we can show in the empirics that too high debt level reduces growth, economic growth, which is certainly needed in the south of Europe.
But the fact to pay interest rate also avoid you to create growth, which is now arriving.
Yeah, this is correct in the short run, but not in the long run. We talked about structural reforms which are necessary and have to be implemented, enforced, and we need an enforcement mechanism exactly to go for this fiscal compact as well. But this is what does not work right now in the Union. And this is exactly because we should think about combination of banking union, maybe fiscal federalism, that each country may be allowed to go for a package of government expenditure and taxes and let the markets again go for an evaluation.
Sorry to cut you, but I spoke with this AXA representative, which today couldn't be here with us, so coming from the market, he said we don't really believe there will be this fiscal union soon, so it becomes really dangerous to invest in the European public debt because we are not sure about the economic performance of European member states. So there is an uncertainty in the market also.
In fact, there is an uncertainty because what you see now in the periphery, in the south, is very low interest rates, record low, on a record low. And we also have some simultaneous events to take into account. We have the weakness of emerging markets, which are severely hit by exit fantasies of the Fed. And this is money pouring in, which can be pouring out if the exit by the Fed is more clear right now. So there is a certain danger in it.
Eric De Keuleneer?
Yes, I think the club indeed needs solidarity, but it also needs responsibility, and that's where there has been a big misunderstanding between various countries during the last 5 years. And it's quite obvious that some countries have showed a lack of responsibility. Nothing to do with the Greek citizens, but the Greek government up to 2008, 2010 did not take its responsibilities quite seriously, neither the Italian or the Irish or the Portuguese government. So there has been too much facility. Yes. And some things had to be corrected.
So fiscal consolidation necessary, but until which level? Ioannis Samougalis, I want to leave us. What do you want to say? Is there a limit to austerity to really allocate to start again?
Fiscal consolidation is the one side of the picture. The other side should be accommodating monetary policy. if you proceed to fiscal consolidation without accommodating monetary policy, that is, without alleviating the burden of liquidity crunch or something like liquidity austerity, then I'm very afraid to say that you lead the economies in big troubles. You extend the period of crisis, and you extend the depth of this. And the effect on societies and on the political stability issue is very important and negative. So in order to have, you may gain a long-term recovery of the economy, but you lose the political stability. And I think that this is a very important issue. So yes, of course, fiscal consolidation, but along with measures that facilitate the liquidity of the economy so as to keep on the business going.
Short answer perhaps here in Europe, what to I mean, in
yes,
Northern Europe.
Monetary policy is and has been very accommodative these days.
No, it's not.
Very accommodative, and if you go for low interest rate forever, you will really have high interest rate in the future, because you get less and less credible, and this is maybe a contradiction to what you intend.
Eric De Keuleneer.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Anything, Galis, you wanted to say something short, please?
Very.
Sorry.
I agree. I disagree. And I'm calling on this my disagreement the paradigm of the United States. You cannot proceed in fiscal consolidation without some accommodating monetary policy measures. It's a suicidal example. It's a suicidal example, especially for the countries of the north. Evidence provides the proof of what I'm saying. Instability, political instability is a very crucial thing. The Nazi parties is a very crucial thing, and the whole Europe should worry about it. And it's not independent from the monetary policy or the fiscal consolidation kind of policy that are followed up to now.
Yes, I do think that some structural reforms were needed in many countries, and unfortunately, the only way that was found to get those structural reforms has been through fiscal discipline. It's, I think, unfortunate, but from here, I think there are things that can be done on the monetary side, amongst other, by having this burden of the debt alleviated by an innovative or a new monetary policy, if the ECB becomes able to buy some government debt outright in a limited amount, in a limited way, for the problem countries, to take away the legacy debt.
You would be ready to enlarge this new system also to other countries, not only Greece, for instance?
Yes, and you could say that it could also be enlarged in a smaller amount to other countries.
Like France or
yes, in order
Italy.
then to finance specific investments and in order to boost the economic activity.
Short question, 20 seconds. Do you think Berlin could hear this? Could accept?
Could accept a kind of mixture of compromise, you said.
The fact to alleviate other countries' sovereign debt in exchange of precise conditionality and so on. Quantitative easing, huh?
I don't think so, because we recently had the example of France, again, not hitting the targets, and then appealing to the ECB to go for a weaker exchange rate, and this is certainly not accepted by the German government. This has been made clear.
Okay, so Eric De Keuleneer, I didn't forget you. Are you following? Is this too much economic exchange, or what do you think about what we have said until here? I mean, are you optimistic?
No, I would agree with the idea of having a monetary policy more, maybe more lax, but I would have another alternative position, which is for us, fiscal consolidation is a risk, is a very high risk for the Eurozone, because austerity policies create recessions, and recession create deficits and debt. So as we see in the Greek example, there is a huge risk of a vicious circle in which the Eurozone can be thrown by all this austerity, because when you say fiscal consolidation, it's a very diplomatic word to say austerity measures, and austerity measures is a very diplomatic word to say that you have to attack a lot of social policies. You have people now in Greece that hardly can have access to healthcare. You have 20% under the poverty line, and this is fiscal consolidation also. This is, I mean, another part of what we say when we say this austerity and so on. So maybe there is an alternative path to harsh fiscal consolidation also.
I think for that we should also ask all these questions to politicians who are not day to day because they are busy in their electoral campaign. So I promise we will come back to this subject, sovereign debt, also people who can also as a role to play.
Of course, yes. ECB is a major player in this issue, in the handling of sovereign debt.
Well,
and I think if I may add something, I think that it is time to think about the issuing of Eurobond, a Eurobond that will concern all the countries, but not the governments, but the special project, investment project, infrastructure projects, so as to alleviate the national burden, but refinancing debt, given that will be directed to the financing of big projects. I think this is another alternative.
Yes, I do think that
this is a political possible compromise.
That could be a political compromise, especially if this debt that is issued by government and bought directly by the ECB has a conditionality, and that conditionality would be the observance of some economic and fiscal performance with a kind of delay. But we do need structural reform in many countries. Europe has far too rigid labor market, has a far too rigid social security financing. The type of financing of the social security should be changed in Europe. Whatever the advances on social security, but the way to finance it is unsustainable at the moment. Those reforms have to be made, and then the monetary policy can help.
We have to finish. Our time's up, just to be, equal. I just wanted to ask a small question. Inflation. We didn't really speak about inflation. In these perhaps times of recession, we really have to respect always this other word of Damocles of 2%. Why we can't increase the rise of inflation? We know it's very political also.
The inflationary expectations are in the medium run anchored in 2016, as far as we know from the ECB, at 2 percentage points. This is what we expect, and let's look what
it was linked with the growth rate of the 90s.
Let's raise consumption taxes. That will raise inflation expectations, and that would be probably a much better way to redress fiscal deficits.
Good. We come back with all these discussions. Thank you very much for participating. I hope to see you all again in a year, let's say like that, to discuss what we hope will be a healthier economy in Europe. For the moment, arrivederci.
Thank you very much. Bye.